This is Enterprise Security Perspectives, straight talk for the people who carry the risk. No hype, no vendor pitch, just what changes when security has to move at the speed of the threat. One quick note, the voices you're hearing, including mine, are AI generated. The ideas are Roger Halpier's.
The voice is synthetic. The perspective isn't. Let's get into it.
Let's start with the line that gives this whole series its name. You say most security programs are, your words, too slow to matter. That's going to land badly with a lot of people who work very hard. What do you actually mean?
It means the thing we spent 20 years optimizing for isn't the thing that decides the outcome anymore. We competed on coverage, more controls, more products, more frameworks, more assurance. That was rational in a world that gave you time. Time to see an alert, route it, escalate it, get the right people in a room, approve a response. Every one of those steps quietly assumed the attacker would wait.
And they don't wait.
They never did. But the scale is different now. The attacker's model is continuous reconnaissance, vulnerability chaining, autonomous execution, machine speed movement from access to consequence, reconnaissance, initial access, lateral movement, privilege abuse, exfiltration. Stages we use to treat a separate collapse into one motion. And it finishes inside the window where most organizations are still deciding whether the alert is worth waking someone up for.
And these are increasingly AI-driven attacks.
Increasingly, yes. And that changes the character, not just the speed. An agent-led attack doesn't only test whether your response is fast enough. It tests whether you left anything exploitable behind at all. It probes with persistence. It repeats. It adapts its reasoning to what it finds. It doesn't get tired, and it doesn't lose the thread. So a defense that depends on human throughput for the first move of containment isn't just slow. It's structurally behind. You're bringing a slower kind of thinking to the fight.
But realistically, we're talking about minutes here. Does a few minutes genuinely change the outcome?
It changes the category of the outcome. A few minutes is the difference between an incident that stays technical, contained, logged, handled, and one that becomes operational, then regulatory, then reputational. Once the attacker is through the window where you could have stopped it cheaply, every later minute costs more, and the cost stops being yours to control. Delay is what turns a security event into a business crisis.
Every CISO already knows attacks are fast, though. Why is this a leadership problem and not just a SOC tuning problem?
Because the bottleneck moved. It used to be detection. Can you even see it? We got good at that. The bottleneck now is everything after you see it. Decision latency, authority latency, the misalignment between legal, operations, risk, and IT. Everyone who'd have to agree before anyone is allowed to act. Your primary risk in the AI agent era isn't that you know nothing. It's that you cannot move.
That's a strong claim. You're saying knowing isn't the hard part anymore.
Knowing is necessary and no longer sufficient. I can give you a security operations center that detects beautifully, and you'll still lose if, the moment it detects, the response sits in someone's inbox waiting for a sign-off. The control that fails you isn't the one you're missing. It's the decision still waiting for approval.
Let me play the board member, because this is exactly what I'd say in the room. My dashboards are green. My audits pass. My framework coverage is high. Are you telling me that's worthless?
Not worthless, but it measures the wrong axis, and it manufactures false confidence. A program can look mature in every report and be operationally obsolete if detection, authority, and response are slower than the attack. The reassurance you draw from frameworks and a clean audit is reassurance about activity. It tells you the machine is busy. It tells you nothing about whether it can turn activity into timely consequence. You're not exposed because you lack effort. You're exposed because your model still assumes there is time.
So where does that leave coverage? More controls, more safety is genuinely how most leadership teams reason about cyber spend.
That's the first illusion I'd take apart. At machine speed, a control is only real if it changes the attacker's momentum before that momentum becomes business impact. That's the test. Not, is it deployed? Not, is it in the inventory? Does it bend the attack? In time. A control that depends on slow human interpretation to fire isn't a defense. It's an administrative artifact. It looks like protection on a slide and does nothing in the event.
Give me the concrete version of that.
Take a detection that's perfectly accurate but routes to a queue someone triages every few hours. On paper, covered. In reality, the attacker has chained 3 steps and moved on before anyone opens the ticket. The control fired into an empty room. And we still report it as a capability we have. We don't have it. We have a record of it.
But surely some of those controls do fire in time.
Some do. And those are the ones that matter. The point isn't that controls are worthless. It's that deployed and fast enough to work have quietly come apart, and most reporting still treats them as the same number. You can have 95% coverage and still lose if the 5% that's slow sits on the one path the attacker actually takes. Coverage is an average. The attacker isn't interested in your average. He's interested in your slowest real path to something that matters.
There's something else I want you to defend. That attackers don't see our controls the way we do.
They don't. And that's why the coverage mindset keeps failing. We organize security as a list: domains, control families, framework categories. Tidy. Attackers don't meet you as a list. They meet you as a graph: identities, privileges, trust relationships, endpoints, cloud paths, legacy exceptions, the dependencies you forgot you had. They don't attack one problem at a time. They chain across whatever you left connected. As long as you defend in silos and they attack in paths, you're permanently offset from the way real compromise works.
So, coverage is the wrong question.
Coverage is the wrong question. The right ones are: can you see the few paths that actually lead to material harm? Do you know which controls collapse those paths fastest? And have you already decided what you're willing to interrupt to break them? Security gets serious when it stops protecting everything equally and starts protecting consequence deliberately.
Let's go to the part that makes operations people nervous. Response. Detect, escalate, validate, discuss, approve, act. That sounds responsible. You're calling it a liability?
It was discipline in a slower world, and it's a liability now. Every step that depends on fresh permission gathered during the event is now part of your attack surface. The attacker isn't pausing while you build internal confidence. He's not waiting for legal and operations to align. The time you spend coordinating is time he spends moving.
Give me the test then. How does a leader know if they're too slow?
Apply it across the whole chain. A security operations center that still depends on manual coordination to take a high-confidence containment action is too slow. A managed provider that has to wait through contract ambiguity before doing anything disruptive is too slow. A leadership team that doesn't even know which critical systems are invisible to its own security operations is too slow. Speed is the measure that reveals whether the operating model is honest, because it strips away everything that looks good on paper and leaves only what actually works.
But the alternative sounds like, let the machine pull the trigger. That terrifies people. Automated containment taking down production on a false alarm.
And that fear is why people freeze. The answer isn't reckless automation, it's pre-authored action. Reckless automation is the machine deciding what's acceptable. Pre-authored action is leadership deciding what's acceptable in advance, and the machine executing inside those boundaries. Human authority moves forward in time. You decide before the incident which identities can be disabled, which sessions revoked, which devices isolated, which paths cut, and under what level of evidence each one is allowed to happen.
Can you put that in a picture for anyone who isn't a security person?
Think of the sprinkler system in a building. The old model is sprinklers that wait for a committee to agree there's a fire before they switch on. By the time everyone agrees, the building is gone. Pre-authored action is the opposite. You decide, in advance and in daylight, the exact conditions under which the sprinklers turn on by themselves, and then you trust that decision when the smoke starts. The judgment still belongs to people. It just happens before the fire, not during it.
So the human is still in the loop, just earlier.
Earlier and at the right level. The human decides the policy, not the keystroke. Seriousness doesn't begin when you buy the automation. It begins when you codify the authority. And bluntly, automation without authority is just a dashboard with delusions of relevance. It lights up, it alerts, it recommends. Then it waits for a human who isn't fast enough. You've spent money to watch yourself lose in higher resolution.
That's quotable and uncomfortable because it puts the burden on leadership, not the tooling.
That's the whole point. The real barrier to machine speed defense isn't the technology stack. It's leadership discomfort with pre-committing to disruption, agreeing, while everything is calm, that under these conditions we will cut this service, suspend that account, accept that cost. Refusing to decide doesn't remove the sacrifice. It just guarantees it gets discovered at the worst possible moment, under panic, with incomplete evidence, with the attackers setting the timetable.
So if I'm a leader listening to this, what's the takeaway from episode 1?
Two things. First, stop measuring security by how much you've covered and start measuring it by how fast you can decide and act. Second, speed isn't a tooling property. It's an authority property. The fastest technology in the world stops at the slowest human approval in your chain, which means the most important security work you do next quarter might not happen in the security operations center at all. It happens in the room where leadership decides, in advance, what it's willing to let the system do without asking.
And next time?
Next time we go inside the building, because the most expensive illusion of all is that the inside is naturally safe. We hand out privilege like it's free. We let trust pile up. And now we're standing up AI agents with real reach and no real identity. We've already handed out the keys. We just haven't admitted it yet.
Let's leave it there.
That's Enterprise Security Perspectives. If it made you think, there's more material linked in the show notes, and the next episode's already waiting.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.